We're going to get started right on time. I'd like to call to order the Tuesday, July 29th, 2025 special workshop meeting of the Waukegan School District 60 Board of Education. Can we have a roll call, please?
Ms. Lensing. Mr. McBride. Ms. Ramirez.
Yes.
Mr. Riddle.
Present.
President Rodriguez.
Present. Okay, all board members are present. Item 3, Pledge of Allegiance. Dr. Cesario, could I ask you to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Okay, time for public comment. If there's anybody here that would like to address the board. All right, the main reason, I just want to explain the main reason for this meeting. I think most of you know, we are here for the purpose of participating in a special workshop, which is going to focus on the whole concept and process of superintendent evaluation. We're not here to evaluate the superintendent, but we are going to be discussing the process and the tools for evaluating a superintendent, and also for goal setting, which is a first step, because you can't evaluate unless you have goals that you can set and judge superintendent's performance based on. So we're not going to have any closed session portion to tonight's meeting. It's all going to be an open session. We are not going to be discussing the superintendent's performance. We're strictly going to be going over the process, and with the assistance of Dr. Mark Friedman, we will be going over the concepts and getting some ideas. And actually, I think he's got some examples of some of the types of tools that some of the other districts use that he'll be able to share with us. But let me just tell you a little bit about Dr. Mark Friedman, for those of you who don't already know. Dr. Mark Friedman is a former elementary school teacher, principal, assistant superintendent, and superintendent. He retired after 17 years as superintendent in Libertyville District 70. In his final year, he was named State of Illinois Superintendent of the Year and represented Illinois in the national competition for U.S. Superintendent of the Year. After retirement, Dr. Friedman took on the roles of interim superintendent in Winnetka, Elk Grove Village, Niles Township High Schools, and Hawthorne School District. In addition, Dr. Friedman was a primary trainer for the Illinois Administrators Academy in Lake, DuPage, and North Cook counties, as well as the Chicago Public Schools. He provided training in administrative evaluation to over 1,000 principals, superintendents, and central office personnel in the Chicago area. He has also designed administrator evaluation plans for many districts in the area. In addition, Dr. Friedman served on the state commission charged with rewriting administrator evaluation standards and evaluation criteria. He is currently the president of BWP and Associates, the fourth largest administrator placement and consulting firm in the country. And as a side note, Dr. Friedman was one of the individuals who assisted us in our search for superintendent. How many years ago was that? 10, 11 years? 10 years ago.
10 years ago. 11, go on.
Right, it's been that long. And so what we're going to do, we're going to step down from here. We have a table set up, and we're all going to sit around and participate in the workshop. So you can bring your food with you if you.
Board President, there's a question. Do we need to have a motion to start? To open it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, we do.
I make a motion that we proceed with the meeting as presented by the board president.
Second.
Okay, motion by Ms. Hannah, second by Ms. Lensing. Can we have a roll call vote?
Ms. Fabian.
Yes.
Ms. Hannah.
Yes.
Ms. Lensing.
Yes.
Mr. McBride.
Yes.
Ms. Ramirez.
Yes.
Mr. Riddle.
Yes.
President Rodriguez.
Yes, motion carries. You're now officially in open.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. We can step down to the table.
Yeah, you feel like you're in TV land. Jimmy Kimmel coming out soon, or one of those?
I'm sure this will be when I drop my sandwich all over myself.
That's okay. Okay. Best to talk in, well, I can tell, it's working. Everybody ready?
We're ready.
Ready to go? Okay, so what we're going to do tonight, a couple of things. We want to look at some of the research, basically how many of your colleagues in other districts are going about doing this evaluation process. The first part being, what does the board expect of the superintendent, and vice versa, what does the superintendent expect of the Board of Education members? And I think it's a real critical piece that everybody knows their roles. You've gone through training, you've had this school board association training, you've had go to workshops at the III conference, you go to different things, but this is more personalized to you. And this isn't going to be me talking to you and giving you all this information. I want to hear your reaction back on some of these things. And like I said, some may be, oh, we know about this stuff. You know, this is a common practice. We're good at this. This is something we do. Others may jar you to thinking, hey, maybe we need to help ourselves be better in this area. And I think everybody can improve. And I've done this in so many places, in so many districts, and some of the most high-performing boards, they always come back and say, I learned a lot. And there were some things that we picked up that maybe we aren't doing the right way. And so we'll talk through some of these. If we have time, and we are going to keep this to a reasonable time frame. We said no longer than 2 hours, so we can set our clocks. And I admire you getting us started right on time. And then we have some scenarios that we may want to talk through if we have time. You know, typical things that might happen. How would we react to these things? So any questions, anything before we start? And we're going to go to the first page. It's up on the screen. You have it in your handout. Defining board and superintendent roles. So if we look at the left-hand side underneath board, we look at some areas that the board's main responsibilities fall under. Vision, mission, goals, and policies. It's not hiring, it's not evaluating principals, it's not evaluating teachers, it's setting the vision, the mission, setting goals, and approving and setting policy. Most of the time, the policy piece comes through a third party. And it's the School Board Association, they're sending you their press release with recommended policies. So you work on those together as a group, you approve, add, modify. But in days past, boards used to sit together and write the policies. You don't have to do that anymore. Very time consuming and something that frankly people always pushed off till the end. The end of the year, you'd wind up doing 15 hours worth of policy writing. We're in such better shape today. These policies are all legal, they're all verified, and therefore, it's a piece that the board has that's actually done for you. The end results are what, why, and how much. Those are the questions you asked, yes.
Yeah, I am, okay, I am wondering about when you talk about goals. It's kind of been kind of interesting about goals. And excuse me, now the goals are under board. Now, these goals, I'm gonna say it how I say it, or how I think of it. The board goals should be the framework of what the superintendent's objectives, action plans, regulations, and procedures should follow. Am I right?
It's
Okay.
the district's goals, the board's goal, board/district's goals.
And where do those those goals come from?
Collaborative goal setting. Collaboration between the board and the administration. The board members aren't supposed to pull these goals out of thin air. They just don't exist. You have certain items that are initiatives, certain mandated things that you have to do by law. Some of those are translated into goals. So that's a collaborative process between the two groups, between the board and the administration. I don't just say superintendent because there are many people that play roles in that.
Okay.
And we'll get more into detail on that as we move along.
Can I ask a question? too?
Yeah, sure.
All right. I know you talked about press and how we don't have to draw up our own policies anymore, that press kind of brings those out. And I know our legal department does look at press, but we don't see it usually. Do any of our board members here ever see the press recommendations for new policies?
When we also see it when we go to our division meetings, they'll provide different examples or samples that you can institute in your district. And when we go to conferences, they'll have some suggested policies to put in. Both Cube and Triple I do it.
Right, right. But on a regular basis, I'm not sure that we're getting those ones that are put out. I know we subscribe to press, and I know some districts, when I've gone to conference, they say, we don't draft policies anymore. We just look at what press is recommending, and then we revise it a little bit if we want, and that's all we do. I'm just asking that question.
That's pretty common.
Because it
Yeah.
seems like sometimes I've been part of committees which are looking at and designing our own policies and writing our own policies. Have you been part of that as well? And it just seems like it's a lot of work, as you said.
Yep.
So I think we should look down the road here at involving press more and taking advantage of it instead of looking at writing our own policies in our committees.
It'd be
that we get
very
to.
easy.
Yes, thank you.
Go ahead.
Sorry, because I'm eating, but I want to clarify that we're not writing our own. Sometimes they do have those examples and they're editing, or they're looking at our old policies and revising. But generally, when you're on those committees, you're not starting from scratch. They'll have the framework and then you're editing through. So they must be getting it, or they might be getting it from there.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like what committee, because I've been on some policy committees, some accelerated, committees, accelerated, and we spent lots and lots of time looking at, so it does.
That's why you don't do it in a
Yeah.
public meeting, because
Yeah, it
people will be
takes a lot of time.
sleeping. Yeah.
They do the research, they also look at other districts. They also
go ahead.
tend to look at other districts that are comparable to ours. So again, like, there is some structure. It's not coming from thin air. I haven't been on a committee that's like, okay, we gotta figure this out word for word, but it would beg the question if we could get an update when that press release is out.
Yes.
They come out.
Yeah,
They come out
regularly.
regularly, yeah.
It's simple when they come out, just pass them on. That's all. It's a simple little thing. But you have a committee who will then work to take those and then recommend to the whole board, because you don't want to do that as a group.
Right.
You don't have the time
No.
nor the interest.
I
So,
think our
easy
legal,
to do.
our legal does do that. I mean, she will come forward
Right.
with some policy revisions because the law has changed and stuff. So
Yeah.
I'm sure she's looking at press.
Well, the good part about press is that it is legally verified, most of those recommendations, through their law department. So I think it's a pretty solid thing. The key is you don't want to dip your toe in too many waters because it's just too much. Yeah, it's just too much.
Well, my perspective of sitting on this board, the word edited. Sometime when you have individuals sitting around the table when there's a policy. For example, let's just say a dress code. Everybody got 1,000 different opinions on that, and you just go round and round and round. But when you have as you were saying, the press, automatic set way to-
Recommendation, yeah.
and I think it's easier that way, but it always happens that individuals have their own opinions on how they should see it. So sometimes we could go over and over and spend a long time on a policy.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want to caution us as a board not to just do things because it's easy, but thinking about our community and how it impacts our students. Because what some people may feel, using the dress code example, is appropriate for their community may not align with our ideals and our values and what we want for our kids and ours. So I just want to put that cautionary comment in there.
When major issues are up for discussion, then you don't take the short route. You nail that. But many of the revisions that the press does are minor. The law is tweaked, a date is tweaked, the law changes and it ends in 2005. Well, we're going to extend it to 2010, so you make that change. So many of them are those type things. So you don't have to spend valuable board time on those kind of things. But it's very easy to send the press out. I used to do that. My board would send it back. Said, we're good. We don't need to see all of them. It just depends. If you want to do that, easy to do. Anything else?
And I think we may have to sign up with them.
I believe you probably are.
Yeah.
As part of
We
your.
are automatically,
Yeah.
you mean?
Yeah, as part
Yeah.
of your membership with the School Board Association, you should be, press is a separate entity, but I'm sure you're getting that. Yeah. So the superintendent role on the right-hand side, the superintendent, the role of putting together the objectives, the action plans, how are we going to get these things done? Following regulations, making sure things are done by law, and setting procedures. Most important is to have procedures for things. If you don't have an organization with procedures to do things, you have chaos. And so that's critical, and that's the superintendent's responsibility and her team to follow and set those procedures. So you're not dealing with it every board meeting.
Policy sets procedure.
Yes, exactly. So how, when, where, and by whom? That's the superintendent's determination. How are we going to do it? When, where, or what do we need? And who's going to do what? And that gets into the delegation piece that the superintendent has with staff and staff responsibilities. And then the superintendent does recommend action to the board. These recommendations are critical. The key at the bottom, trust and communication governs all. We have to have a high level of trust and a high threshold for communication. It's important that that be done. Just like you were saying, Rick, with wanting to see what press is like. And maybe after seeing two of them, you'll say, hey, don't send me that anymore. But that's okay. It's okay to see that. Any other questions or comments there? We're on our next slide. So, what should the superintendent expect from a board member? A lot of these things maybe are common sense. You know about them, but it doesn't hurt to refresh, and some may be new. So this is, again, based on some research that we've done in putting together workshops with boards for this very same purpose. So one, the superintendent should expect from board members to represent and serve the entire district and all its students, even if elected by a special interest group. There are many districts where politicization takes place and groups are run by organizations for seats on boards. And that's not what it's intended for. These are all supposed to be nonpartisan. And that's the case in a lot of areas. So the entire district, all students, and if elected by a special interest, you have to put that aside and look out for the interests of every child, every person in the district. Second item is to adhere to the highest ethical standards. Everybody has a little bit different definition of what that is. Some of it is just common sense politeness, some understanding the role and responsibilities of superintendents and boards. But ethics are critical. Remember, your community is watching. I heard there's like 850 subscribers to your board meetings. So people are watching. And what you do and how you act is really important. It gives a sense of what the board is like. Know how to compromise and abide by the majority of the will of the board. Very few boards are 7-0 on everything. You have a right to have your own opinion, to vote in your own conscience, and it's fine to take a vote and cast a nay. It doesn't have to get explained. You could feel an obligation to do that, but it doesn't have to. Compromise and abiding by the will of the majority will show a cohesive board, again, not having to be 7-0 on everything. Very little of that takes place in communities. But on certain items, it's fine to have a 7-0 vote. It's fine to back the recommendation of the administration. It's important that the superintendent expect from the board to know the difference between board and administrative responsibilities. The area that sometimes boards get into that are administrative in nature are evaluative opinions about administrators or teachers. Say you live next door to somebody who's having trouble with their child's teacher, and you're getting it in the ear many times, day and night. You have to be able to resist being, as a board member, and using that seat on the board to take your neighbor's cause up. Sometimes really hard to do. I mean, it's like, and that's just a simple example. Some of it gets deeper. But these are really critical pieces. Because if people are jumping in all the time, then the administration will never know when they're comfortable making decisions. Yes.
That's not with your neighbor, that's also the community as well.
Yes, yes. I just picked the neighbor as an excuse because I know it's the communities. Most communities have something like that. It's all about us, not me. It's us. You have a well-functioning board. It's us. And that's something to keep in mind as you go through and work through recommendations. Next slide, please. A couple more things that the superintendent should expect. To be prepared for board meetings and informed about community and education-related issues. That's critical. We know sometimes things happen in life, and you don't have a chance to have as much preparation as you would like for a board meeting. But for the most part, try your best. I know community-related issues, if something happens, it's important that you pass that along to the superintendent, the administration, so they're not caught flat-footed. Here's the real key, and I want to give you an example of something that's going on right now. You may have really seen it in the newspaper. Number one, to respect confidentiality. Have any of you read about what's happening in Naperville right now? It's really bad. a school board member took it upon herself to go to a committee meeting made up of community volunteers, a finance committee that meets twice a year. She tape recorded that meeting. First of all, she wasn't invited. Second, she tape recorded the meeting and did not get permission from the other people. So these community members who volunteered were upset. Everyone was upset. The superintendent approached her and told her that she was wrong, and she argued with him, and so they called the police. Violated Privacy Act. Very clear state privacy. You can't just record somebody in life. Yes. And it's in the state's attorney's office. This is all going on like right now, this week.
With that being said, is there an issue in our public board meetings, when there are individuals recording? How do we handle that?
It's
I
a
mean,
public
is it
meeting.
Yeah, this is a public meeting.
Okay.
That wasn't.
That wasn't, okay.
That was, it was, yeah, and there wasn't a quorum of board members.
Got
And so
Thank you for that clarification.
these were individual community members who have every right to privacy. Yeah, this is going to blow up. What's going to happen is there's going to be a press coming out soon regulating these kinds of things. Give it a month or two down the road. But this is working now in a big district like Naperville, and it's kind of torn everybody apart. It's caused people to take sides, and this board member is already been censored by her colleagues, and these are the kinds of things that cast a negative look on the whole board, the whole community. The actions of one make you all look bad. And that's why it's so important for the respecting confidentiality and respecting each other.
Can I get clarification? Now, that was a committee meeting, and I thought those were open. Or was it not a committee meeting, it was a finance meeting of the school district?
An advisory,
An advisory board?
yeah, it wasn't a school district committee meeting.
Oh, it
was
wasn't
an
a school
advisory.
district at all?
It was organized by the school district.
But it was a finance meeting? For the,
This is a group that meets twice a year to advise the board on budgetary issues. And they're talking about, like everyone else, what do we do if our funding levels are cut? And this was the beginning of the discussion. She recorded that. And people say, what's going on here? We're just here starting to talk about this. We don't want to be every comment to be attributed to us. And so there is a law, it's not the Open Meetings Act, there is a law, a state law that doesn't allow for, yeah, exactly. So this is something that probably has happened in other places, but all it takes is one to blow up, and it's gonna have an impact on everybody. So what does it say? It also says that board member has no consideration for her colleagues. There's more to it. We'll be reading more about it. It's almost like a soap opera. I'm watching each day. What's the next thing to unfold? Don't let any personal bias influence any decision. That's just kind of a common sense thing. Realize you can't please everyone. That's the hardest part of sitting on a board of education. There are things sometimes that you just can't agree to. You can't please everyone. There are issues that prevent that from happening. You also need to be careful not to give the impression that you speak for the entire board. There is one spokesperson, the board president, and in lieu of the board president, sometimes the vice president is named as spokesperson. But everyone can't speak on behalf of the board. Really important. Ask questions, but don't embarrass anyone. This is common sense. This is treat each other how you would like to be treated. And then finally, support the district administration. You don't have to have blind loyalty. The last page on this area is to support board and administrative decisions. If it's been approved, let's support it. If there are issues along the way, meet with the superintendent or the administrative staff and talk about those, walk those through. No surprises with your board members. No surprises to administrators. I've seen board meetings where a board member calls out an administrator in the audience, tells us all about that, and the person's like totally unprepared, unexpected. So we try to not do things like that. Sometimes you may need clarification from an administrator who participates by sitting in the audience. Understand and support the chain of command. It's critical to run a good organization. As a board member, don't go around the superintendent. It's really important. To ask appropriate questions, evaluate the answers, and vote your conscience. That's why I say it doesn't have to be 7-0 on everything. Vote your conscience. Have open and honest two-way communication. So keep that communication open between the superintendent and you as board members. It's really critical.
Can I say something?
Go ahead.
You were saying don't surprise the administrators when you're sitting behind there, but it's a lot of times where there's information comes to the board, sometimes need to be questioned, and it's not really calling them out, but I just think that to get some clarity to actually make a real good decision, you need to get an answer back from the administrator before you make that decision. And I think that happens a lot. I mean, I don't do a lot of speaking, but other individuals I sat back and they ask legitimate questions. So I think that's just anyway. A lot of times it's not. I don't think it's surprises. I think they have a right to answer those questions before they make a decision. Thank you.
And it's how you ask. Caroline.
I 100% agree. However, I think it also speaks to previously coming prepared. We get documents ahead of time. We get the presentations ahead of time. We should also be going through everything so that if we have a question, we can ask it before the meeting so then we can have that answer. Because a lot of times we are asking those questions up here. It's making our meetings go longer. But also some of these things we're asking for specific data number that may not be easily accessed in that moment. So for me, it's also speaks to us and how prepared we come so that we can ask those questions and they can come with those answers. And sometimes things do pop up, right, where you have to ask. But I think the more that we can come prepared, have those questions already out there, emailed and answered back, it helps us all around.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
As long as I've sat on the board, one of the first things through my years, through learning from other board members from the very beginning, you ask questions. That's what you do. You ask questions. And the as far as the materials that we get beforehand, I'm sure everybody's looking at them, but I'm also sure that information provokes questions. And so just because you have questions, that does not mean that you are unprepared coming into the meeting. It just means that the information that you have read has provoked other questions. And so it's good to ask questions. I was taught through years, ask questions. You may not make a statement, but ask the question.
Exactly. Sometimes you can ask those questions prior to the meeting. and go to the source of the information and get those questions answered if it's really bugging you. It's as long as you have the information that you need when you cast your vote, that's the critical piece. So everybody's right on that. I would ask Superintendent Placentia, is there another item under what you would expect from board members that we haven't gone over here before we move into the next category? Anything on your mind?
I really don't think there's anything that I would add. I do know that we worked with ISB, and just setting up, like, how do you want the information, organized? What is your expectation? And we are working through that. So when I have that guidance, once I know what the target is, then we can hit the target. My ask as the superintendent would be that we all formalize what that target is for the year. And if it shifts, I understand that sometimes it does need to shift, that you give the administration time to make that shift so that we can get you the information. But as long as I have clarity around the ask and the expectation, then we can deliver. And I should say, I can deliver.
Yeah, and the team can deliver.
I'm going to hopefully not speak for you too much, but I think another feedback piece was that we don't have to have the exact same expectations, but not have 7 different targets for you to be hitting. Having some sort of general umbrella of we want, and then of course we can have our very different specifics, but the general umbrella should remain consistent so that you're not trying to please everyone as it was referenced prior.
You cannot please everyone, that we know. Let's move on to the next section. What should the board expect from the superintendent? And let's go through these things and see if there's some other things that maybe you, the District 60 board, would say they need to add to the list. And that would be helpful for your superintendent to know. That's the best part, no surprises. Again, the worst thing that happen at any meetings are these surprises. So, encourage the growth and innovation and tolerate an appropriate amount of reduced expectations or even failure. It's the price of excellence. Sometimes things don't work as planned. We can't be afraid to acknowledge that. I think people look at you in a better light when you say, we tried this, we tried hard, we put these resources in. It didn't work the way we expected it. You will get a nod of approval. Ms. Hannah, you're nodding already. And because people like when others admit things didn't work out, rather than make flimsy excuses, try and bluff their way out of it. This is a critical piece. A lot of superintendents are afraid to admit things. It just happens that way.
I'm going to jump in on this one just because I think exactly as you said, if you tell me what it is, then we can work on the solution. But if you're trying to hide things, then I have to figure out what's the truth. And then the accountability piece, I think, is the most important thing. And even as a board, we've seen that more at the podium where we tried implementing this program. It wasn't done with fidelity. We're going to buckle that down on that this year. Okay, great. Then let's give it another go because the data's not showing, but you're explaining to me why. I think the thing that we need to get to on a board is what is an appropriate amount of reduced expectations? What's the duration of that before we start to say this has to take a turn because it's no longer tolerated?
Yeah.
And
Well said.
define that, please. Define the phrase appropriate amount of reduced expectations.
Some things just don't go, they go off the rail. Some things hit a dead end. The expectations might be different. Some things may be, the expectation is that we build a second story on this school next year. Okay, studies are in, architects are telling us can't be done, the roof and the floor can't support, those kind of things. And we've committed all these things. Okay, we have to stop. We have to come back and say, we had the greatest expectations. However, when all the pieces of the puzzle were put together, it appears that we aren't going to be able to do that. Even though there's expenditure, there's initial expenditure, and there are things that we have promised, in the end, it's not going to be worth it, it's not going to be valid.
So is that with all aspects?
No, not all aspects, but there are things, sometimes we're over anxious in setting our goals. They may be reaching because we think we can do that. And then midpoint, we're realizing we're running into some issues. Nothing wrong with saying our expectations were set at this level. It looks like we're going to come in at a lower level. And then a lot of different things. It could be, how many kids graduate from high school. It could, who knows? But there has to be things that somebody can't worry every time you set a goal that if I don't exceed it, my job's on the line.
I think the key piece around those instances is prior communication, right?
All
And it
about
goes
it,
to
yeah.
the good two-way communication. We as a board shouldn't be surprised when we hit the deadline and it's not going to work. There should be monitoring steps and conversations that lead up to it so that we're aware. We're on target, we're off target.
Yeah. There's a lot of unknown coming up for this year. The funding piece, as mentioned earlier, it's an unknown not only for District 60, but it's an unknown all across the state. Yeah, and we don't know when we're really going to get it set straight, if it's going to get set straight.
Yeah.
And so do you stop setting goals and anticipate doing things that require a certain amount of resources? Do you put everything on hold, or do you go forward with it and see, hey, we're going to move forward as best we can and try and find all the resources we can? If you run out of those resources, then you play the game a little bit differently. But this is going to be a very hard year to set concrete goals because so many things are dependent upon this funding level. I heard some fairly good stuff today that some funding is being released in some areas. I think there's pressure on all sides politically, and that may help. But will it be where the expectation was? Probably not. That would be overly optimistic. The room for failure has to be part of every evaluation, everybody's work, because no one's perfect. And I hate to use that word failure. Maybe not meeting full expectations is a better way to say it.
The question I have, we solely look towards the superintendent and administrators. What is the board's role with trying to get us across the finish line in terms of this area we're speaking about with academics? What is our role in that? I mean, as far as what part do we play? Because we often set back and with expectations, looking for it to happen. But what roles do we play in terms of making it happen?
That would be in your goal setting. And again, the action plan is the administration's. So the board can be the cheerleader, the accountability factor,
The
financer. The accountability factor comes from the board. And you're holding the administration accountable on behalf of the community. So that's a common practice. However, is it the board's responsibility to say to the administration, I don't like what books those kids are reading in second grade. I don't like, what high school kids are getting at ninth grade. That's the administration's responsibility.
I think one thing that, from my perspective, we struggle as a board is, what does holding the superintendent accountable look like? So when you say you hold them accountable, what does that look like in practice?
That's reviewing the superintendent's goals that you jointly set and getting reports from the superintendent. There's generally a mid-year report. I don't know how you do, but I do a mid-year update, quarterly update, whatever it is. Hey, here's where we're at. This is what we're doing. Go ahead.
So I'm going to jump in here, and only because we have a few new board members. So previously, we would do like a mid-year review on the goals. I don't know if Mr. Riddle, Mr. Rodriguez, you were on the board at that time, Ms. Hannah. We would do MOY. It would get pushed back at sometimes for other initiatives. So then what we started to do was to bring updates, or whether it's information during student achievement time, to update on different parts of the goals. If there's 4 goals, just to update where we are at that point instead of a whole MOY review. Personally, I would prefer an MOY review with the board. To me, I think it would bring more calibration to the evaluation process, and it would allow the board to know, but also myself, what you're all thinking, where I'm at, what you're not seeing, where I could provide more clarity, what maybe I'm not doing that I need to cover. So I personally would be in favor of an MOY review where we just go close, and just have this look. I mean, we would still give presentations during student achievement so the public can know, hypothetically, like the wraparound center, where we are with that. But I would definitely be open and actually lean into having that mid-year review.
It's not uncommon. Many districts do. Call it State of the District, mid-year review, mid-year update. It kind of keeps the topic on the agenda rather than, oh, we did that 6 months ago. I can't remember what we talked about. So it's not very common. And it's something, again, that builds the continuity of what those goals are. And you can kind of say, hey, we're moving along, making good progress. Here, we got hit between the eyes with the funding cuts, and we had to suspend some of the things we're doing, and things aren't going according to plan. That's where maybe even failure is admitted. Failure doesn't mean you're not doing your job. It just means that things have happened. Go ahead.
Well, I think that we don't celebrate enough because we are doing good as far as I'm concerned. Also, we have a gentleman by the name of Dr. Brown that comes in and do our presentations. He kind of lets me know where we at academically. And I just also, too, I think we don't do enough celebration because we are a district, and my perspective, I hear more minuses than I do pluses. I do hear that, more minuses than I do pluses. I just wanted to say that, but there's a gentleman by the name Dr. Brown. When he does his presentations, I kind of know where we at academically.
Well, it's interesting, and I've been in Lake County a long time, and I keep track and watch what the school districts do and how they're represented in the media. And Teresa has heard me many times saying the difference in the perception of Waukegan District 60, and maybe since the pandemic, I would say, and just in the press coverage and the positive news, is maybe 150% better. It's positive. I don't see any negativity. It's celebratory, and I agree with you. If you can factor in more celebratory opportunities, I know you bring staff and students to meetings and honor them. Those are the good parts. But the perspective that people have about District 60 is so different today than it was 10 years ago, 5 years ago. And it takes time to get there. because you had to dig out of a big hole. And it's come a long way. Now the momentum is moving in such a good direction. Want to keep that going. And celebratory opportunities are absolutely appropriate. And fit in here, probably should be an item on the list, but it's all good. And staff members who are recognized. Things like that. We sometimes forget that the person who's in his or her fourth grade classroom does a great job, good feedback from parents, principals saying great things. They come, they do their work, they go home at the end of the day, but they really don't get other recognition than maybe at Christmas gifts from some of their students, whatever. But those other things to recognize good people are important. And I think your labor piece in this district is another story, in the fact that you are at that point where things have really moved along nicely. As an outsider, I see it. You probably don't see it as much.
I would mention, I had numerous comments about the flyer that went around, or the, what you want to call it, that the district just did, the pamphlet that went around, and all of the positive things that have been happening in District 60. People were telling me, wow, I got this flyer about Waukegan, and just a lot of stuff that you guys are doing. I mean, teachers being recognized, the kids doing this, our music program doing this, just a lot of stuff that was in there. And it was good, I thought, for the people, especially the people that don't have kids even.
Right.
In our district, to see that. That went home to everybody, and I thought that was terrific. I mean, it was just wonderfully done. It had, I don't know who all designed it. I mean, our department that does media does a fabulous job. They have been doing a wonderful job on our district and trying to highlight some of this. And I think the board itself has been trying to, but I think we have to even highlight it more at every board meeting, some of the good stuff that's happening. Because our kids they're doing great things. And then at the end of the year, and I know some of our board members were going to events as well at the end of the year, so many positive things. Oh my gosh, some of the presentations that were made by the schools at the end of the year, work that the kids are doing, parents coming in feeling good about their child and saying, wow,
Absolutely.
I'm proud of little Jimmy here or Johnny and what they're doing. And these kids are up in front making presentations, at the, well, anyways, several of them.
Yeah, but
the
you're
Whittier
hit- you're-
School, the
you're
IB
right.
School, the fact that we have the first IB school is a big thing.
Exactly.
Wonderful stuff.
There's a lot of firsts.
Yes, a lot of firsts.
And those are things that you all should celebrate together.
Yes.
You're elected to represent the community. When good things happen, take them.
Yeah.
When bad things happen, admit them.
Even our graduation, wonderful. It got rained on, but I didn't hear any negative comments because the sun came out at the end. People are still taking pictures. It was just wonderful, the event. Yeah, we just carried on during the rain.
I've done one of those outdoor graduations in the rain.
I didn't hear any negative comments.
Positive.
I didn't hear anybody saying, no, we should have held this inside. There was none of that. People were.
Yeah. But that's the culture you're creating, and it doesn't happen overnight. One of the factors, stability and leadership, is a key factor to building that. And I didn't realize it, it's been 10 years, but the key, people understanding and knowing how leadership works, very important, and a lot of stability in secondary leadership too. So all good.
Can I say something real quick?
Yes.
I've been promoting that, us presenting the dialogue, us writing the dialogue, because too many times we let ourselves be influenced by the negativity, the people that have the negative things to say about us and our district, and sometimes we tend to start believing them. And I found out that the ones who speak out are the ones that are going to write the narrative. Okay, whatever the story of District 60 is, we're either going to let the negative people write the narrative, or we're going to write it. And this is why we have to be the positive spokespeople for the district. And I see so many good things happening. This is why when I speak during my time at the meetings, I always try to promote something positive, like bringing in that article about the greenhouse the other day. I just see so many positive things, and why let an opportunity like that get away? Because you're going to hear the negativity out in the community. And the more positivity that's spread, the less people are going to pay attention to negativity. So I just see this happening. I think this whole board I think we're all good spokespeople for the school district. And Mr. McBride, I'm glad you brought up that topic because it is important. We need to be the ones to write the narrative, because if we don't, somebody else will.
Yeah, I heard that at a conference, another board member said that you're gonna always get negativity, but always try to beat it out with a plus, because you're gonna continue to get it. So I think, like you said, the more we spread positivity, the less we can suppress the negative stuff that's gonna come, because it's gonna come.
No, you're right.
I think the thing with that is that during our board member time, we're all spreading the positivity. We're all talking about the different school events that we're going to, the different interactions that we're having. My concern with letting people run with the negative narrative, if we don't look to build bridges and look to resolve those concerns, they're gonna keep coming to that podium and keep repeating the same negativity. So I think it's a balancing act. Yes, let's focus and push out the great things that we're doing, but also look to find resolution quickly so that it's not the same issue coming over and over and over and over. It's a
that's-
waste of their time, it's a waste of our time, and it just breeds frustration.
Yeah, you're right about that. Absolutely. Yeah. No one benefits from the same thing over and over again.
Right.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, it's a major turnoff. It sends a negative, casts a negative over the board meeting.
Yeah.
Good. So a couple more things. What should the board expect from the superintendent? To evaluate the superintendent in an objective, standards and performance-based manner. There are a set of standards for superintendents. And to offer, here's the key, constructive suggestions. If you have a constructive suggestion or something that's bugging, don't carry it on your back for a year. Share that with your superintendent. Let her know. She can't read minds. But if it comes out at meetings or it looks like negativity, that can be read by everybody. So it's important to keep, it's again, that two-way communication. And I think you're all pretty comfortable with your conversations with your leadership. You should be, and you feel that you have to say something to her, something's bothering you, say it. Not an open meeting, a private conversation, a phone call, those type of things. No surprises, no embarrassments. And finally, on that first page, good two-way communication. Again, we've said this over and over again. It has to be two-way communication. A couple more things that the board should expect from the superintendent. To be the primary motivator and resource in policy development and to execute board policy in an effective manner. So you know those policies that come out of press, ultimately they land on the superintendent's desk. And the superintendent has to ensure that the district is following that policy. So there's a lot of follow-up there. Next would be to adhere to the high, go ahead.
Okay. And I'm just gonna, put a, question out there that's, been a worry me, issue for me ever since we kinda did it, right? And then hearing, and even sometimes visually seeing, the inappropriateness of the, what is it, the appearance policy? We change it.
Dress code?
We change,
Dress code?
no, students. So it's the dress code, not the appearance?
The exact verb, it's the dress code policy, but if you say that, that's what everybody will know. The exact term on the policy,
Yeah.
I can't recall.
Okay.
I do believe it's called the dress code policy.
Well, anyway, we have a policy that governs the students' expected dress code, right? And, from what I am seeing, what I am hearing, what what people say to me, that even staff at particularly the high schools, okay? And unfortunately, it's starting to trickle down into the middle school, where the dress policy, and I thought it was, they changed it to the appearance or something. But anyway, same difference, that the staff gets in trouble for trying to enforce the policy with the students. And the dress on a daily basis is inappropriate. I see you shaking your head because you know, and how do we do that? How do we deal with that? Jeff, help me.
Can I,
Well, when Ms. Hannah's talking about,
Did.
Ms. Hannah's saying, we all adults sitting at this table, and we all have morals. I'm a man, and I see young ladies when I walk into that class, in that building, I have to turn my head, because there's things I shouldn't be seeing. And that's it shouldn't be that happening. But the question, some time back, I think, we talked about a dress code. We wanted to go uniform. We had a problem about that. That didn't happen.
Right.
But still, if we didn't go uniform, there still should be an appropriate way to dress.
Right.
I'm saying that when I walk into the building, I shouldn't have to be able to look at a young lady's cleavage. I shouldn't have to be able to do that.
Right.
And it got to the point to where it's now, you can wear pajamas to school. You got to the point, you can do all kind of stuff, but I don't blame that on the students. I blame it on the people sitting ready on this board, and they know that it's inappropriate, and we're adults, and we understand what morals is, and there's no way in the world we should be letting that happen.
so can I just want to give some background, and I'm going to turn it over. So I think this goes back to where we talked about people coming together to develop policy. And so this policy was looked at through the PTAC, who helps write, some of our student handbook.
Yes.
And there was a survey done, and there was a big initiative throughout our district where students were surveyed, I believe parents were surveyed, a big discussion around this, and then they came up with a policy which they proposed to the board. And so I say that to say, when we were talking about people coming in to discuss policy, we here in District 60, and I would say this is a board's ask, is to involve our stakeholders, our students, our parents. I mean, and the board takes into consideration what they believe or want to see. Of course, the ultimate decision lies with the board. So I say that to say that if the board ever wanted to revisit this policy, that's definitely a board function that we could bring back. But I just wanted to give context on how we got here.
And
Can you tell what the policy is currently? Because I don't think staff is. So I think you need to give context of what the policy is currently, because we changed it because we wanted to ensure that we were more equity-based, where as long as they're covering from here to here, where it used to be a little bit more of a, you can't have anything sleeveless, you can't have more than 2 inches above the knee. It was stricter. So I don't think it's an issue of the staff is enforcing the policy. Maybe they're enforcing the old policy, because our new policy actually allows for children to come with sleeveless and show their belly button if they want to. Like, that is the policy, and the board voted for that. Okay, but again, the board voted for that. And so I don't, again, going back to this, if we have to make sure that we also understand what the policy is, because we can't say staff is being penalized for trying to have kids adhere to the policy. They're being probably penalized or being talked to because they're following the old policy and not the new policy.
Okay, so I don't want to derail tonight around this policy. However, I do want to say that we talk about morals and values. Clothing is not morals and values. That's based in Puritan culture. That is not our business to say you should be dressing a certain way. I can see your cleavage. It is sexualizing children, and we shouldn't be doing it. But again, this is a conversation that we need to have, to the superintendent's point. If the board wants to revisit, we can have those conversations, but I urge you to come educated.
And I heard both of my colleagues, okay? However, okay, yeah, and I can tell you that staff is getting disciplined, not because they are enforcing an old policy. It's because they're trying to enforce the policy that's on the books, the revised policy. And the same thing that revised policy says is the same thing, basically, that the original policy said, except, okay, I guess, I don't know, they're now talking about body shaming and all that stuff. But actually, we're training young people to go into a workforce that dress style is not appropriate in many organizations and agencies and places of employment. And so you would be surprised at the at reports that I receive where young people are going into an interview and they are dressed like they're going to a beach. That's what we're doing is not helping.
It's a life skill.
Yeah, we're not helping them with life skills, and we're worried about shaming a body. Well, it's detrimental not only to them, but it's also detrimental to the men folk.
No, that's not. We're not having this conversation.
Okay,
We're not
I'm
gonna
gonna
stop it.
Yes, I'm gonna redirect
No,
it right
we're
now.
not gonna stop it.
We need to
I'm
have this
telling you.
conversation outside.
This is a good example of how the process works. However, that's not the purpose of tonight, okay?
No, I
We
know.
need to have this discussion,
We do.
and we can, but the reason I picked up the mic was that I want to try to bring it back on track, because we are here for the purpose of discussing evaluation of the superintendent and the process. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
So with that, what should the board expect from the superintendent? Well, you have a controversial topic. Your expectation is the superintendent then puts together a process to deal with it. You can't come to a board meeting and argue it amongst yourselves. You need to have guidance. The superintendent will do the research, bring it to you, and you can make your judgments based on that.
I'm going to ask a follow-up question. I'm going to keep it high level. My question is, if the superintendent and her administration has done that previously, and it's being brought back to do it again, how do you picture the board or the administration should handle that situation? If the work has been done, and now a couple of years later, recently, it wants to be done again.
And it's done for clarification purposes and to renew.
Let me say something. Only reason I use the word morals, because I'm sorry, but I stand on my morals.
That's an okay term.
But
That
I
term is
say
fine.
that, I say that parochial school. We got St. Anastasia, we got St. Martin de Porres. I guarantee you, if you walk in those buildings, what we see in our buildings, you will not see that. Because
That's a bias.
But that will be part of your discussion as board, finding a way to move forward then the administration will implement that.
We need to get back on track then, please. Yeah, we need, yeah, as I said, this is
Sounds like you
something,
got a topic to discuss.
this is a topic that we need to discuss, but it will not be resolved tonight.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go back to the high-level question that Ms. Lenzine said, but I think the question also would be, as a board, is this a discussion that we want to revisit? And the board would say, yay, is there a consensus, yes or no? And then if the board said yes, then we would go back, and do the work on it. And so
Exactly.
that's the
Exactly.
process, right? So I'm going to just taking us back to the process, not the issue.
Yeah, yeah. And the administration is charged with bringing you the information so you can make your decision. But it sounds like that's
And it's a
gonna be
good,
somewhere,
what's
yeah.
happened here is a good illustration of what is board work and what is the superintendent's work.
Exactly.
And that's, you know, and sometimes we want to solve it all right here tonight, or we want to have another meeting and solve it.
Yeah.
And it's not our job to do that.
And it doesn't mean you don't have a voice in the discussion. Everybody has a voice, but it's the responsibility of the administration to follow through.
The decision lies with you.
Yes, but the
Yes.
decisions are-
Policy work is board work. I
Yes.
think that's,
Policy board is.
and this is policy, so
Right,
that's
right.
why
But this is a
board
good.
member Hannah wants to.
Exactly, but this is a good example too of how we sometimes get off track. You know, from what is the job of what the board is being, you know, told our job is tonight, and this is not our job tonight. And So
Exactly.
the board president tried to pull this back several times, and we're still talking about it.
And we're still talking about it.
No, I'm not talking about that
One
one.
more and we're done. We're moving
But
on.
what we could add to this on both sides then is that we should expect that each other know our policies. So the board expects that the superintendent knows and understands the policy and what the intent was behind it, vice versa. She should expect that the board also speak with one voice and understand and know the policy and the intent behind it. So I think those bullets need to be made on both sides of the deck.
We all learned something tonight.
Yeah.
we did.
Yeah.
So we should all go back and read that policy, because I was doing it.
Invite me back for the discussion over the dress code.
Let's end the discussion, let's move on.
Okay, let's move forward. So the next is to be sensitive to public needs and expectations. I think you just gave a perfect example of that right now. You are sensitive to it. And the superintendent, the board expects from you, the superintendent, to be the face of the district and the community. And I know how active you are. You live in the community. I know how active you are. To develop and execute both short and long-range plans. That is an expectation of the superintendent. You, as board members, contribute, absolutely. But the execution and putting it all together comes from the administration. Next would be to manage and develop an efficient board agenda. And I liked what you were saying earlier. You now have a monthly calendar, 2 meetings per month. It's getting things more in line, more calendarized, more efficient, yes. And you can have a meeting every week, doesn't mean you're running a good board. Too many. Many boards are 1 a month. They become very efficient in 2 hours, 1 a month. So if you, and no one's opportunity to speak is compromised. People have understood what the agenda is. People do their homework, and they do that. And so I like the move, and this is, you know, another way of going about it. To manage and develop an efficient board agenda, I just said that. To keep the board informed and avoid surprises. Again, no surprises about the third time I mentioned that tonight. Proactive communication. That's the superintendent's responsibility. If you have all the information that you need about everything going on, if you know who's not dressed appropriately, you know what's a code issue, then you'll be able to come back and respond. And the superintendent is keeping you up to date. I think that's the real key. And share information equally with all board members. That's for superintendent to want to keep his or her job. You better do that. Let's put it this way. You know, you can't, have some people get some things and others not. The board expects the superintendent to provide strong leadership. People need to know. When I walked in, when I got this tour of this building a couple weeks ago, everyone acknowledged your superintendent. The painters, everybody acknowledged her. I noticed this stuff. You don't think about stuff like that. But this is a way of saying, we respect you, we know who you are, and you don't hide in your office all day. It's real important. To serve as the primary spokesperson for the district, yes, you can only have one. A lot of times, it may be a controversial issue, the superintendent and the board president will be co-spokespersons.
But the superintendent speaks as representative of the school district. The board president speaks on behalf of the board. Two different entities.
Absolutely. The board expects the superintendent to support the board's decisions. Okay, you come up with a decision on this dress code, and your superintendent, oh my God, I don't go along with this at all. I'm not going to do it. Look for another job. You know, I mean, you have to support board decisions. That's why it has to be collaborative. That's why your goal setting has to be collaborative. All this stuff together.
You know what I would say? Forget about everything I said about my morals and everything. Go to your administrators, your principals, and let them tell you what they think.
Absolutely,
Stay on track, let's go.
absolutely.
We have to, the superintendent has to exercise self-control when given too much to do. I have seen some major meltdowns in places. You know, I can't take on anymore. You can't give me any more. There's just too much. You can't expect this, you can't expect that. You know, I know a superintendent now that I yelled at her. She's in her office until 11, midnight. And I said, number one, you put yourself at risk, being the only person there, nobody there, got a whole wall of windows, people driving by, anyone can see you, and you could be a victim. Secondly, it shows people you're not being efficient with your time. You cannot do that. So you've got to be able to, you know, self-control, set your schedule, do things in a reasonable way. And she said, I know you're right. I know you're right. I can't help myself. I said, well, we need to help you. We need to help you. To run the day-to-day operations of the district, no question about it. The superintendent runs the day-to-day with her staff. No ifs, ands, or buts. There is only one superintendent in the school district. Only one person who has the credential for that. Others may have it, but they aren't employed under the superintendent license. And then to hold staff accountable for their actions. It's a real key.
I have one fast question before we get into the scenarios, and it's not, I'm asking this so that we can understand the legal repercussions, not that I want to be in control of this component. But when it comes to the hiring of staff, ultimately it's the board who approves. When it comes to
Approves the recommendation.
the recommendation. So then that's my question, is that if for some reason there's a staff member that is hired that becomes a liability to the district, I believe it's the district's responsible for hiring them. Is that accurate? So then how do we navigate those situations? And I guess it's just with our votes, but we don't want to do the day-to-days. We don't want to hire all of the individuals for the district. But if there's a bad move or a bad hire, then how would we navigate those situations because they are becoming a liability to the district?
That becomes the superintendent's recommendation. Superintendent recommend non-renewal, severance, walk a person out, the superintendent's going to recommend that to you, because you'll have to act on it as board members.
But if it doesn't get to that point and there's an
resign,
infraction.
that's a different story. You
Well,
have to-
no, but I mean, like, no, if they're still employed in the district, we're
Mm-hmm.
responsible for their actions within the district as a board. Mm-hmm. So that's just from what I'm hearing, essentially, that's just trusting our superintendent to hire the right people so that we don't have those issues.
Yeah, sometimes things happen. Sometimes things happen in people's lives that change them tremendously. Something personally, death in the family, a divorce, an adoption. I mean, just things happen where your whole life changes, and sometimes people go off the deep end. And you have to be able to address that on the day-to-day basis. It's the administrative team that does that. You will then eventually be involved in the action taken if they don't resign. Otherwise, you just accept a resignation. But sometimes there are buyouts, there are dismissal process, legal dismissal process.
I have two statements. One, I think it would help me if there was a time where we carved out and there was specific employees that there were concerns and we had conversations about, and we could take that time. Because I also think that there may be some information, like you don't know that a staff is on a PDP or has a support plan, or I'm already working with legal on how do I get here, right? We're just not there yet. And so I believe that we could collaborate on what something like that looks like as a cadence, so that you do have the information, or you may say, it's X, and I'm like, oh, well, we haven't been seeing that, so what are you hearing? Because it may be even the first time that I've heard something. And Ms. Lindsay, we've been there before where you put something on my radar, I'm like, I didn't even hear about that. So, and this is a big district, and there's many layers, right? So if it's at a school, it may not even rise to me, it may be still sitting there. But as a
Or
board.
it could be gossip and not
That's
backed
a
up
good
by
point.
truth.
But that is something that we could carve out time for if we just made a cadence on having those discussions, and you would have more information. And I'd be willing to share that information also.
And of course, maintaining confidentiality and not
Yeah.
overstepping our role within that.
Yeah, that's the real key.
But I think that's where it's important, where we have that two-way communication, right? Because I have no
Absolutely.
problem emailing her if I believe there's a concern that came across my
Yeah, if you
board.
hear something or
I
something
have no
comes
problem
across to
saying,
you,
what's this about?
you're obligated to share that, so the superintendent can get on it. Because she's so right. It's a big district. Things that happen in certain places may take a while before it filters back. And there's always somebody that would maybe want to protect someone. But, again, you're doing it for the benefit of the kids. And you can't protect an adult to the detriment of children.
Right.
It's a simple thing. Yeah, that's a simple answer. So you want to try one or two scenarios, and then I want to show you a sample? I think we're staying right on our timeline.
Yeah.
So look at this first one, the basketball coach. This is a real possible situation. I don't reflect if it's happened here, but this is an open. The other day at the market, one of our patrons stopped and told me what a poor job our basketball coach was doing. People have opinions about coaches. We know that. I told him, so I'm the board member, I told him I agreed the coach had not done well this year, and that we might be looking to get a better one. What do you think about the way this board member reacted?
That's definitely a wrong response, and I kind of have been in this situation since my child played football a lot. It's more, knowing how to answer these questions, sometimes agreeing without agreeing, sometimes disagreeing without disagreeing, right? But yeah, that one, what we talked about earlier, right? That positivity, right? That one of also encouraging other people to step up, right? Because sometimes I've taken this opportunity to be like, well, we definitely need volunteers if you'd like to be there, so.
But that statement, we might be looking to get a better one
That's not our job.
on a board member saying,
Well, the bigger issue for me is, you might agree, but to say that we might be looking for another one, I think that's where the real big problem comes. That coach may not even know that their job is on the line or they're being evaluated, or maybe it's not even on the line, right? It might be that person's perception, and you're making a general statement, we're looking for another one. If that gets back to that coach,
lawsuit.
that part.
Yeah, these kinds of things, again, it goes back to, you're speaking, when you're a board member, you're speaking for the whole board when you say that, not just yourself. So you cannot obligate your colleagues on the school board to get rid of a coach. But it's not an uncommon situation, we all know that. Let's look at one more. You receive an email from a delegation of parents who want to speak to the board at the next board meeting. They also request to know how you stand on their issue. What if it's somebody who's got a whole group together about how students dress? And you're passionate about it, Miss Hannah. What do you do?
I'm going to say that they need to come to the board meeting and make comments to the entire board. I cannot make a decision about that, and I'm gonna go hit with you. I have the way that I think, the way that I believe, and that's that.
That's it. I was just gonna say, cut it at
That's
that. You know, the more you say,
They're right.
Yeah.
You don't keep pontificating so that they keep back. No,
yeah,
you don't
yeah.
do that.
Don't give it a little too much. Yeah.
Yes, you don't. Oh. Yeah, absolutely. Whenever something happens, I call the superintendent.
But that's not an uncommon practice, where a group gets together over an issue. Maybe they don't like the principal, and they're gonna go to a board meeting en masse to protest that they don't like the principal. I've seen that in many districts, very, very common. And, you know, you just can't get in the middle of that in your role as a board member.
When you let the superintendent know, she may find out ahead of time what the real problem is and be ready to, you know, address that, or have one, you know, of her deputies in the back talk to those people after their presentation.
Let's try one more, because it hits a little bit on what you were saying earlier. You really disagree with the position of the superintendent on a personnel issue. Now, remember your role as a board member. He or she is recommending hiring a person who you feel is not best suited for the administrative job, and you feel that an inside candidate should get the job. Go ahead.
So I think on this one, that's why I have asked that we get those bios ahead of time and not see them for the first time at the board meeting. Because if, for whatever reason, any one of us has an issue because we see a name on there that we may or may not know or may not like, and we have maybe a personal bias, or the community has a bias and says, well, that person's not suited for that job, they don't have the certifications. If we have those things in front of us and we know all the facts, and I trust that HR is doing their due diligence, but usually we have that one-pager bio that says they have their master's in this or that, how many years they've been doing the work, where they're coming from. That helps us to have that information in front of us so that we can make a better decision and we're not just listening to the bias from our community or from ourselves.
And sometimes, if you've gotten to know, and you've been on the board for a while, you've gotten to know the leadership team up and down, and you may feel, oh, I've watched so-and-so for several years, that person's great, that person would be better in the job. I think this kind of reflects that type of thinking. What do? You can't impose your will on the superintendent.
It is, I think this is a good scenario because it's a bit of a balancing act, right? Because there are times, and not even just at the superintendent level, where, you know, let's say one of our student groups is looking for leadership within the students, and they are just looking at the high performers, the more vocal ones, but they have a really good candidate that's quiet. And if an outside party points out like, oh, did you look at that one? Oh, I didn't even think of that, right? And then you start looking at it, and then the points are all adding up into that column. That could be good, right? But I think the thing is that, to Ms. Fabian's point, if we have, you know, the interview layouts, the questions, it rules out any questions that we may have. But as long as we, as a board member in closed session, are saying, from a non-biased perspective, I think an inside person would help with continuity. It's less training on the job. They know the system. We can focus on these other areas. You're giving some feedback. Ultimately, they're going to say, no, we still think this person's the best, and then you just vote your conscience. Beyond that, you can't continue to advocate for specific people to get jobs because of relationships or perceptions or et cetera. But I think there is a little bit of a conversation gray area. But then ultimately, you just got to vote your
It
conscience.
happens in a community. It just happens. The smaller the community, the more it happens. But the key is, it's always something that I tell boards to remember. The Board of Education has one employee
Yeah.
to hire and fire and compensate, and that's the superintendent.
Yeah.
So these are almost courtesy that the superintendent brings these things to the board to acknowledge. Because legally, the superintendent can hire that and make a recommendation. You don't have to vote yes on it, but make direct recommendation, don't give you anything. So you already have a good communication pathway already established. But this is not something that isn't uncommon. The friend, the relative, the internal candidate, the nepotism, the sister of somebody, it happens all the time. And many times you can't paint all of that with the same brush because somebody's relative could be a really good employee and you don't want to rule them out. However, a lot of times it does create problems. So that's why districts have nepotism policies. I don't know if you have one here, but a lot of districts, I had one. Yeah, I had one. I needed it. Otherwise, it would be every other week we'd be entertaining relatives, and that's not good. And there's one more we can hit, and then talk about some goals. Board member and you are polar opposites on a public issue facing the board. You feel that this board member is pushing too hard and not being civil to the other members of the board. In other words, why is that board member pushing so hard? What's that board member's interest? What do you think about that? How do you deal with that?
Some board members see things different because of the fact of their experience, their knowledge, and point blank, you know, some are a little bit more knowledgeable than others. You know, so, and then, you know, you seen it was red over here, and you know it's been green all the time, and you still trying to make it red, you know.
There are people that try to do that.
I think some of the key words is you feel, that's your perspective. Pushing too hard, that's your perspective. The not being civil, I think you need to have clear expectations as a board in the same language of what does respect look like on your board. And if someone's not showing respect or someone is being disrespectful, then as a collective, you take a moment and say, hey, I think we need to take a break. It seems like our emotions are getting the better of us. However the board decides they want to handle that, I think the biggest concern is the civility or the respect part. Because you might feel they're pushing too hard. They may feel that they're just making sure that everybody's understanding the situation. Those things are biased in perspective, whereas the respect is the key component for me on this one.
Great. That also places a responsibility on the shoulders of the board president to hopefully address the civility issue.
Right.
Because that's a tough thing, especially if people get locked in over an issue so heavily that they don't see the light of day. So that's your responsibility there. Great, those are some pretty common things that people see. You're all pretty much a lot on the same page. You very much so are. Let's now shift to a really, really good example of goal setting. Contacted one of my colleagues who's a superintendent of one of the biggest districts in the state. And everything she does beautifully. To the point, not overdone, not overblown, but this is a standards-based goal-setting summative evaluation piece. And I just want you to see another. I don't know what yours looks like, actually, but look at this to see how clean and easy it is. The topics might not be your topics, but they're standards that are required by the state of Illinois. So there's 6 basic standards for superintendents in Illinois with a lot of subcategories. I sat on the committee that wrote those. It took forever. And a lot of districts have adopted them full blast. Some have taken them and pulled them apart a little bit and added things and modified them for their own needs. But I thought this was something we should all take a quick look at. And I didn't put the name because I didn't want her name on all over the YouTube or whatever it is, but trust me, this is an extremely successful superintendent. Is there enough for everybody? There you go. There you go. So, again, 6 standards. The first, mission, vision, and core values. So, we talked about mission and vision earlier on in the PowerPoint. It's a critical piece. Second standard, teaching and learning. The third, organization, finance, and facilities. Here comes the ethics piece again. We talked about ethics in the PowerPoint. Social and political environments are number 5. And standard 6, policy and governance. Now, under each standard is supporting data. What is she expected to do under each standard? So there's 6, 9, 10, 7, and under each standard there's a number of expectations. And this not only helps her, the superintendent, define what she has to focus on, but it helps the board when they look at her culmination at the end of the year with a self-appraisal and how she's met these goals. So develop and monitor and share a strategic plan in areas of focus in the district. Use data to inform progress towards goals, develop and refine a master facility plan. This is a lot of stuff, just under that first standard alone. Now, when we do training and goal setting, we always tell first beginning superintendents, we don't do more than 4. Because as you can see, the heading is not so much. It's the action items underneath them that really create a lot of work. So an experienced superintendent, you may want to do 5, you may want to do 6. This superintendent does overkill sometimes, so she, of course, is going to have 6. And she wanted to cover every standard. Some may be important at the time to this district, while others aren't as important. You want to put a greater emphasis on one over the other. But a lot of this stuff is developing, creating, monitoring action items. And it's not like Teresa Placentia sits down and does this herself. This is the roadmap for her team. But you're holding her accountable for it. That's the key. You have to have something to make your judgment at the end of the year. And in collaboration with the superintendent and self-appraisal, do you do a self-appraisal? An overview?
It was. I don't think I can make that comment.
It's something you may want to look at, something you may want to incorporate, or you don't have to do anything different, just some ideas as to what some things you would like to incorporate into that overall plan that you currently have.
Have you worked with? I'm sorry, Board President. Have you, worked with districts that, that uses the super eval?
I've seen it, I've worked with some districts that have gone to it, but I haven't used it myself. You know, it's the online, it's on an iPad, and it's all electronic. Is that,
Yeah,
yeah, I'm not overly familiar with it,
okay, okay,
but districts are using it, yes.
right, okay.
Have you investigated that?
So we do use it in our district for our administrators. As far as the superintendent evaluation, when I came in 10 years ago, I looked at our previous superintendents, and I just wanted more information being a new superintendent. So I went and I found at that time was what they were saying was the best superintendent evaluation tool, and that came from the Greater Council of City Schools. And so the board had adopted that, and we've been using that ever since.
Those are generally pretty good.
It has a lot of meat to it to give you a lot of information, so.
This is more guidance for goal setting. These are all, like I say, action items. How many is reasonable to expect the leadership team to do and get their other work done? You can either adopt a set of goals that are achievable and won't take away from your job, or you're going to adopt a massive set of goals and expectations with reams of paper and then not get the job done, not be available for things. That's a common question.
So Dr. Friedman, the board has been, it's been about 4 to 5 goals since I've been here, maybe?
No more.
It's, yeah, research says between 4 to 5, right, to be effective. So the board has been about 4 or 5, maybe the first year we had 6, I'm not sure. But it's been between 4 to 6, but we tend to land between 4 to 5.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I went to a conference, and we went to a school that was accelerating. And I asked the gentleman, how did you do this? He told me he didn't take on a lot of projects. He took on a very few projects and he was successful at that one.
That's what I'm saying, yeah. You have too many goals and they'll get watered down, or your superintendent will not be able to come out of the office. And that's not her. I know her, she's out and about. And people in the trenches love to see the boss. Yeah, I don't know what term to use. The person in charge, the superintendent. People like that acknowledgement. Kids like it, teachers like it. I, as superintendent, spent every week in different schools. Almost every day I was somewhere. And that was because I liked doing it. Not everyone is that comfortable, but you want that. You want that. It's a big district. You can have an invisible leadership. And it goes for the other leadership team, too.
Well, you know, not to throw a ring in the game, but that also worked for board members. But
Knowing your role.
Yeah, knowing your role, but I'm just saying, staff like to see board members. And at one point, we used to, I know when me and Ms. Hannah was on the board, we was all over the district, into the buildings, not causing headaches, just the fact of the matter saying good morning and welcome, and maybe every now and then ask how's things going, and that's it.
When you do come, you still got to remember, you're wearing that big B, board member hat. And people look at you a little different. They look at you a little different. They look at you as the boss too. And so it's great to have that. And it's the anticipation when somebody is acknowledged, or there's a schedule set, hey, I'm gonna be at this building today, this building tomorrow. People get ready for that. They get pumped up for it. So those are important pieces. And it's perfectly okay to put that as a goal, to have visibility piece. My whole feeling about visibility is you can't have enough, but you gotta get your job done.
So is it okay that, that staff cannot talk with board members?
Well, you don't want to interrupt the day-to-day activities.
Right.
That isn't, yeah, that's not your
Right,
role.
well,
Yeah.
right, and
Yeah.
I'm not talking about going all that deep or anything like that. Okay, I'm just saying that, that, like, as Mr. McBride was alluding to, that the morale of staff raises when they see board members, because it's like, oh, you all are board members, and so you come to see us, and that gives them, that makes them feel better. But when, and I'm speaking from experience, when board members are not seen in the schools, it's like a downer to the staff members. Like, oh, they don't care. I hear it all the time. Board members don't care. They don't come to our buildings. They don't care. And that's not true. But there's a reason why, particularly why I don't go to the buildings, you know. But I think it's a great part that board members should play in keeping the morale of the staff better and, you know, moving upward, you know, but, you know.
Yeah, well,
I
you
mean,
don't want to be
everybody has-
disruptive. You don't want to be here and there.
Nobody's ever
Yeah.
disruptive. I've
Yeah.
never heard of.
No, but just by coming in, just by
Right,
coming
but
in,
you go
yeah.
in,
Well, let me give some examples.
Yeah.
I went to Clark School, and you know, they're gonna ask, you're gonna always have some, well, not, what's the word I'm looking for? They're gonna always have some, requests. So I go in Clark School, talk to the principal, and before I knew it, one of the athletic directors came to me, one of the gym teachers. Jeff, because he'd been knowing me for a while, because I've been on the board, I'm like 4 terms. Jeff, and I know him. You know, this rim been up here. I said, yeah, you're right. It's been there ever since I went to school. And so I'll come to Teresa, and I'll say, Teresa, you know, can you look into maybe possibly changing that rim? And it happened, but that's how I operate. I went to Jefferson. Once again, I graduated
Went
from
there,
there.
yeah.
The curtains on the stage, they've been there forever. I go to Teresa, can we get this curtain stage? And that's, when I go to the board meeting, when I go in there, I leave out of that building, that's my concern. But whatever it is, I'm gonna always bring it back to the superintendent.
Those are harmless.
I think we also have to remind them that we can only bring the concern and we can't promise or deliver, so that they're not holding it against us like, oh, we didn't get that curtain, we told you we needed, you know.
Just like the
so-
coach scenario, we can't
Right.
promise we're gonna get a new coach.
Absolutely, and I think also, again, being mindful too, that we're not being evaluative, that there's not an I gotcha, and that you are coming announced. kids especially are so easy to distract. So any new person they see coming through that door, they're like, so we want to make sure that we are giving our presence known before coming. And you never know, because sometimes the schools have an event or something that they're doing. And most of the time, they'll invite us to
Yeah,
those types of
I was
things.
just gonna say, don't you get invited to things? Yeah. Okay, that's usually the common way that you get into the buildings.
It is definitely important as board members that we are present in the schools, in the community, things of that nature. But I think it's also important that we are the first people to respect the policies and the procedures that are supposed to be happening.
Correct.
Making meetings, agenda, or, making an appointment with the principal, letting them know that we're coming. Even sometimes letting the superintendent know, we would like to visit a school with you, That's what I'm saying, but we have to make sure that we follow those procedures because we are the person setting those guidelines, right?
Yes.
So if we don't follow our own procedures, then we have a big problem if we can't follow them.
You'll get a reputation that you don't want.
Super fast. If a school invites me, I'm not sending you an email. Just because it's like there's a school-wide event, that's another email.
Yeah.
If you need us to change that, let me know. But if I'm being invited that, there's the amazing shake over at Oakdale, or if they're doing a reading day or Congressman Schneider's coming, that sort of thing, I'm not sending an email. But if we are out of blue wanting to go visit one of our schools, then it's like, hey, just so you know, I'm going to be going to look at this school today.
Yeah.
Advance notice better, but.
Well, there are a lot of opportunities for board members to be in schools for events and activities, and you will get invitations. The key is know your role. And people will corner you and try and get more out of you. Yeah, don't promise or cross your fingers when you walk in or tie a string around, whatever it is, make sure that you don't speak on behalf of the whole board. I think that's the critical piece. So this list of things under the standards is just something to look at. I wouldn't say for Teresa Placentia, put your name on it and it's good. No, this is for somebody else, but there are a lot of common things that you can focus on and things that can be measured by a mid-year report, end-of-the-year self-eval. The process of reading a person's self-evaluation gives you sort of the story of the year. It's really, I know superintendents overdo it. A good friend of ours, I called her and asked her to send me her goals and evaluation. She said, "Are you sure you want all this?" I said, "Just send it to me, I'll determine that." It was in the form of a book, 29 pages. I said, I'll break my printer. I said, I'm not gonna do this. She said, "Well, I told you, I warned you," but she was a new superintendent. There wasn't anything that wasn't commented on or reviewed. And it was really well done. But I said, "Do you have any time to be superintendent during the year or working on this book all year?" And she said, "Well, it did take a lot of time." And I did take weekends and evenings. And I said, "You already have done plenty." So there's a lot of ways to do it. We see a lot of different ideas out there. Nothing wrong with borrowing somebody else's idea, somebody else's language. I always feel the more simplistic that you put it, the better understood, the easier it is to achieve. If you get into details that are, first of all, you don't even understand, then it'll cause problems in the end. So this is simplistic, but not a pushover. There's a lot of stuff in here. And when you start talking goals, and you can do that this year or next year? Okay. I have another copy where he has a 3-year goal setting, and his evaluation and goal setting is based on 3 consecutive years. I've rarely seen that because things change so much. Right now, I wouldn't do anything for 3 years because you don't know what's gonna happen, and you're gonna have some real financial issues to deal with. So I wouldn't recommend that. I haven't, and I just said, let's maybe sit back on it. I could always give it to you to look at, but it's very different in how it's done with a 3-year span. I like 1 year at a time. Keep focused on 1 year at a time. And also, you gotta let the superintendent have time to do her job. You can't be doing paperwork all day long and then not be able to interact with people. Real key. And then the other piece, the issue that you mentioned about the staff, people not performing, needing information about that. It's okay to put that in there as a goal. More communication about people who aren't performing. I heard a lot of things mentioned as we talked about stuff that might want to be in part of the goal writing process. Not as a master goal, but a sub-goal. But it could fall under one of the standards. It's so easy to organize things based on the standards. Go ahead.
So I'm going to be extremely honest. When we were setting this meeting, I was very skeptical of why do we need this? Who are you? What's the background? Who's calling for this? The purpose, et cetera. It was just like, hey, we're doing this. But I think looking at the past 2 years of goals that I've been on the board for versus doing more standards-based, I'm actually very appreciative of your time in going through this, because for me, if we are asking our students to meet standards, if we are asking our teachers to meet standards, it makes sense that we are framing our goals around standards, because a lot of the goals that we've had seem like more sub-goals underneath these key pillars. And so by focusing on these components, I feel it brings in some of those aspects where we're doing, where it talks about district image and all of those subcomponents, that set. This kind of just merges those two pieces together so that the superintendent is getting recognition that they are accomplishing those in a more formal goal-setting way, but also allowing us to insert any special initiatives or focus areas for the year that we want to insert. So I think this is very beneficial, and I just want to thank you.
Thank you. And these are performance-based.
Yes.
Remember, performance-based, that's the key.
Now,
Yes,
the
Ms. Hammond.
only,
Yes. Yeah,
now,
absolutely, yeah.
okay, I guess maybe, teaching and learning is in reference to the curriculum and how well, that the teaching and learning, yeah, I got that, right? But whose job is it that our staff is happy, satisfied, morale, all of that? Whose job is that?
Everybody down the line. So the first line of defense there is your building principal, assistant principal, the people in administrative and leadership roles. That's their number one responsibility. You as superintendent have to be looking at how they're doing that job. And if that culture isn't good in that building, it's not supportive, students are unhappy, parents are unhappy, you'll find that out quickly. That'll come to you before anything. And then you act on that. But the first defense is down at the building level. This causes people at the building level, this isn't just for the superintendent, this is for the whole team. So this is a list of things, a guide for what we have to focus on. So the superintendent needs to hold those folks accountable. Not, hey, if you don't do this and make everybody happy, you're out of a job. Not that way. How can we make this a great learning experience?
So in that perspective, then it's also part of our job, right? Because we're the ones approving that funding or approving that curriculum or that PD. And so if we're saying that this is the goal, we need higher morale, higher, a better culture and climate in our buildings. And our principals are saying, well, in order to do that, I need X, Y, and Z. I need this PD, I need this to be funded, this needs to be remodeled, whatever it is, then we need to be looking at that and seeing where we can support. So I feel like that's part of our job as well, in the sense of we're approving, approving
well,
those things at the end.
Teresa would come to you and say, we've been meeting with the principals, and there are some things that are really obstacles to getting where we want to go. And here's some of them. And we need you as the board to support this, support what we're going to do. And that's, again, the two-way communication. If you have it, then it isn't an insurmountable obstacle. It's an obstacle that you both can overcome together. It's a team. It's a team. 3 teams: administration, superintendent, administration, and board.
I was hoping you could address one issue that seems to keep popping up. I hear this from board members and from community members, and I've heard a lot of different explanations of it, and you and I have discussed it too, but I would just like to bring this topic up for discussion among the board right now, and that is the whole question of how do we tie the superintendent's goals into student achievement? And I know you and I have discussed it, but can you please elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, the rule of thumb, the school of thought, is you don't have enumerated, hey, Johnny Jones is going to move up 1.25. It's impossible to make those types of determinations. What you can do is an overall look, improvement. Not from a number perspective, because it's impossible to really, first of all, the number perspective encourages wrongdoing. And it's been proven many, many places, yeah. When your job is on the line, you're going to do anything to keep it. Yeah, you're going to make those numbers work. So you don't do it with the numbers, but you do it with the overall success of maybe the grade level, or maybe the science scores, or math scores, or break it down any way you want, but say you want to see improvement by gaining rather than retracting. Things of that nature. You don't want to say by 1.5 years when normal gains are 1.0 years. You don't want to put that goal so high that it's going to make everybody feel that they haven't achieved it.
So,
Yeah.
so we've had goals in the past, and I think it's more tied to the KPIs, where it's like reading scores on the IAR, the IAR are going to increase by 2%. You are saying don't do that, or that's general enough to do?
It's like 2%, 3%, 4%. They're really hard to quantify those numbers. What does that mean, 2%? Overall, maybe at one grade they are, and another grade they aren't. Are you going to judge the teachers then and say, well, teachers in that classroom didn't achieve it, teachers in that did, so that's a better teacher than the other one? Mm-hmm. I don't think your collective bargaining agreement's going to allow for something like that. So you can make those statements, but what's the consequence if you don't?
So one of the reasons I'm asking is because our community is very vocal about our scores. They're extremely vocal. They have been relatively stagnant. And they're wanting to see progress. And so we're also wanting to see progress in that area. So can you give us an example of what an appropriate increased student achievement goal would look like? Because you're saying not to put the numbers onto it.
Sometimes it's put in, the wording that's used is, students in first grade will achieve a what 1.0 growth at the end of the year? That would be 1 year's growth. To expect more than that and they don't reach it, what's your response? If you said at 1.5, we expect 1.5, we know a normal gain would be 1.0, why would you be setting that goal? It's not like you're giving them a dumbed down goal. You're being realistic.
So then, in my mind, as we're preparing for
Year's
these
growth
goals.
per year, yeah.
Yeah, so an appropriate goal could look like 80% of third graders will make 1 year's gain in reading. That would be
better-
appropriate.
That would be a better goal.
Okay. So it's not asking for 100% of students.
right.
It's asking for looking at our population, looking at our special ed department or diverse learner department, looking at our advanced gifted students, all of that, what would make
Yeah,
sense?
I've seen in districts, to make everyone feel good, they set the goal that's unachievable. It's unrealistic. And so they would say, oh, in 1 year, we're expecting 2 years' worth of growth. What happens at the end? How do you explain when it's only 1 year of growth? Yeah.
I'm hesitant to jump in now because I don't want to make it personal. However, Dr. Friedman, you can correct me if I'm wrong. When you look at superintendent goals throughout the state, you don't see them
You don't see
written
it.
that way. And I've done the analysis personally, and I've had, I've done the analysis, and you don't see them written that way. The second thing is the way we evaluate here, for me, and I'm sure in other districts, we're evaluating in March and April where we have to have everything voted. Those scores aren't even out.
You don't even know, yeah.
So that's another hurdle in that equation, right? I do respect where you said, Ms. Lensing, where we do have to take into account our EL population, our diverse learner population. I mean, like, if we're breaking all that out and teasing that out on, okay, now it's only 400, and what does that look like? And we're looking at growth. I just think there's,
You'd really have to do it for all the subgroups. You'd
Thank
have
you.
to set a goal for all the subgroups.
so, I lost my train of thought, but go ahead, Ms.
Yeah.
Fabian, I'll come back.
No, and I was going to add, the other issue with that is because we're constantly changing tests, metrics, and goals when it comes to the standardized testing, and that's what we're tying it all back to. So 1 year we went from ACT to SAT to ACT, right? Every year, the benchmark, let's say for, the school report cards, that number changes every year because it's comparative. It's not, you hit 80%, you're above the mark. It's if you hit that number above in comparison to everyone else. So that goal line is always moving, and so that's where I think it's kind of hard because we have not standardized where it's been consistent through the years because it just can't be. It's always a comparative, right? So when we're basing some of these goals and metrics on the report card, knowing that report card target is constantly changing, and like you said, we don't even get that information until October.
Yeah.
That's what's really difficult, is if
That
we're
is
actually
a
doing the evaluative
big
year.
problem when you evaluate based upon numbers.
And
That's why I say performance-based rather than the numbers, student achievement data. You
Right.
can put a clause in there, hey, monitoring student achievement, expectation is that each child would show 1 year's growth for 1 year in our system. Perfectly okay. I think that's the way to go. But she's right, most do not have enumeration that will say 0.3 growth in this grade, 0.2 in this grade, because there are so many other factors that get in the way of that. Go ahead, Stan.
and I see also here that there was a timeline. Yeah, there was a timeline, the key evaluation dates. And at one point, we were on target,
Your timeline,
we
yeah.
were in the correct timeline.
Used to be.
Yeah, we used to be, but, we got off of that timeline cycle. And I think that's where things kind of started going haywire. You know, because it was like we were evaluating the superintendent, right? Like every 6 months. Yeah,
Well,
less than
yeah.
that, and
That's a
it
waste
was
of
not
time.
fair.
Yeah.
It wasn't fair to her, you know, to do that.
No.
And it was certainly not fair to us that we had to keep coming to the meetings, you know, constantly. You know, so the cycle needs to revert back to the statute timeline, because there are statutes that says.
Well, it's a contract. It's her contract, says I need to be evaluated by such and
Absolutely,
such.
and
So that's
we
the
need
thing
to
that
get
governs it,
back
yeah.
on
Yeah.
track with that, and then things probably would
Mm-hmm.
kind of
Yeah,
come together a little bit better.
exactly.
I think a
Miss-
component of that, sorry, Superintendent, is that we recognize that a cycle or two back, and we had adjusted to try to get back on track, but then we as board members were not attending meetings, and that delayed the goal-setting process. And I do appreciate a perspective that we're taking going forward so that we can get back on track. Because we shouldn't be missing those meetings, and if unfortunately you have to miss, then you have to trust your board members to appropriately set those goals.
Yeah,
But even more importantly is that the when we are off of the timeline, there are consequences. Okay, in terms of the contract language.
Oh, yeah.
And see, and we have to know that language.
Right.
And we have to stay on target for that.
I was just making the comment that we tried to fix it, and then because we're trying to get everybody to come, and they're not coming for whatever reason,
Well, you move
it delays it.
forward. You gotta
Right,
move
and
forward.
then that's the perspective that we are now going with.
Right,
Because
just-
she has to know that, let's get rolling here.
right, right.
I just want to give some context, because we do have new board members, so I just always give a little bit more. I ask that the board do check with your general counsel. I believe my contract is aligned with the state statute, and that's where those dates come from, because there is a date where you have to notify. And so.
Absolutely, yeah.
The board president, maybe you want to get clarity around that to give to the board, but my understanding is that is why those dates are there and were previously there for that same reason.
Right, but I guess it is in the contract, you know, that our superintendent has to present goals to the board for, you know, consideration by September 15th. But then it's also in the contract that we have to evaluate her by March 15th.
Right.
Which does not seem the way it should be. And we have.
Yeah, that's-
We have fallen negligent because, you know, in the past few years, we have done that evaluation, as you've mentioned, later, the initial goal setting hasn't been September 15th, it hasn't been October 15th, it's been November or December 15th. So it's almost ludicrous to do an evaluation on March, because how can you even set valid goals and meet them, you know, in that time? One of the things I'm a little confused about too is, I thought that the evaluation that we used over the number of years through the Council of School Board Superintendents was a valid one. I liked all of the areas it covered. You know, it talked about board relationship with the board, you know, there were comments about it. It talked about staff relations, the superintendent, business and finance. It covered all of these things, budget reports. It was very
Yeah,
thorough.
you don't have to throw that
Instructional
out. Are you
Leadership.
comfortable with it?
Instructional
Was it too
leadership.
long?
But then it did have at the end, the first one we had, you were correct, had 6 goals. Then we went down to 5. Then, you know, the last year we went down to 4. And these goals were tied into the a bonus payment. So, pardon?
No,
No,
those were
the goals. The goals were tied into that. So that's in the contract. So I guess my consideration is, could we even go with what you've suggested here? And I guess I'm asking my board members, are you happy with the current evaluation that we have? I thought it hits a lot of these things that are in what you gave us, Dr. Friedman. They're here, just what I went through. And
Absolutely.
each one of those categories has.
Combine, take from and use it.
Yeah, each one of those categories, for instance, relationship with the board talks about information, materials, and background.
That's because they're standards-based.
Yes, it's standards-based.
But those were not the metrics that were calculated for the bonus.
Those are the, yeah.
Those were not even considered.
For the-
And the
No,
ones
these
that-
are not for the
no,
goals, but these
No,
all
that's-
talk about, they are
Yeah, all of
standards-based.
those- right.
They are,
None of those things were, and to me, okay, all of those things should be considered, because it's not like we are like an elementary district or just a high school district. We are a unit district. And because being a unit district, there are things, all of those things, before he got to,
before we get to the
we
goals.
got to the goals, all of those should be considered in evaluating the superintendent.
They are.
But they weren't.
They're not tied to the goals are tied
Right,
to the.
okay, so
The
that's
goals are
where I'm
separate, they are,
concerned.
the
I'm
goals are tied to the
confused.
bonus payment. But these relationship, all these other categories are the evaluation, which is basically the summative evaluation you have here. So I guess I'm confused with the way we do this, because we have the relationship, all of these ones I just went through, a relationship with the board, the staff relations, the business and finance, there's, 4 or 5 categories in each one of those, instructional leadership.
Those are common
Those are common and they are the
among
standards-based,
superintendents,
yes.
yeah.
Well, hold on, superintendent, though.
Okay,
So just to jump in, so every district has their own way of doing this. So it's
absolutely.
okay, I hope you don't mind me, it's okay if this board has their way of doing their evaluation process, right? What you can't
Absolutely.
deviate from is, and I'm not speaking as a superintendent, just from the contract that you have with your an employee, or with any employee, whether it's a union employee, et cetera, you can't deviate from the contract. However, if, look, I brought this years ago because I looked at what would be one that would have more meat, where I could get some information so I know where I need to work, or, put my eggs in that basket. It's really up to the board on, well, it's a joint discussion, of course, but it's something that every board does do differently. So just so you know that, I hope, just to clarify.
So that we're all on the same page, we have 3 components. We have the summative evaluation, which are those different categories like district image, the relationships, et cetera. We have goals. Then we have KPIs, which are bonus-based.
well, the KPIs are based on the goals.
KPIs come out of the goal.
They come out of the goals.
Look,
They're
they're-
the goals, the 4 goals now. The KPIs are how you rate those goals. I'm just asking, aren't the KPIs based on those 4 or 5 goals, whichever you're setting, 3 goals, however many goals you're setting? You set,
The key performance indicators tie back to her bonus, and those are tied to the school report card. Those are separate from the goals that we set. When we did the African American Male Achievement Initiative, that has nothing to do with the KPIs. That has nothing to do with the Illinois, the IAR, or the state report card. Those are separate. So there's 3 different pieces. So we have linked, and we've taken out we've done, I think, about 4 or 5 KPIs, so that it ties into our graduation rate, or our absenteeism, or our reading scores. That is bonus based. That is not saying whether she continues on and reaches a proficient or needs improvement, whatever that final score is. Those are separate. So the goals, we have said like 4 different goals in the past. And those are different from the KPIs.
It's
So-
very confusing and it needs to be.
Well,
Streamlined.
yeah, and the thing is, with the evaluation, this August to June timeline is very doable. When we're talking about KPIs and goals, if we're basing them on the report card, I go back to my previous comment. Those don't come out till October for the previous year, so that, then we couldn't follow this August to
That's
June
why
timeline. It would make
nobody-
no
I'm telling you,
sense.
No one's doing
So-
the measure by number. It's just, the data just isn't there.
However, I believe that that was a component in your contract, that those KPIs had to come out of the report card. And so
KPI stand for?
I think key performance indicators.
Oh, key performance.
So-
For a potential bonus, and then
measurement,
that came after COVID, because that was in there, that was a component of the contract in 2017, and the board didn't decide to enact the bonuses until around COVID, because the heavy lift that the district did, especially the superintendent and her team, getting our kids where they needed to be in that pandemic. So that's when it first came in, and there's been conversations around this, and we'll take that off the table, whether it's a go forward or not, but those KPIs had to be based on, per your contract, because it was decided upon that was a neutral, outside of us, we don't have a control, and that's just an expectation.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, if that's in our contract, we still have to do those KPIs, then our timelines, we're gonna have to do separate timelines.
But it was always a separate timeline.
The problem was,
Always been in the
so
contract.
it hasn't been recently a separate timeline because we've been so late. So that's
Not
my issue.
uncommon. Things get in the way.
But it's been extremely late.
Yeah.
I always want to remind the board that although the expectation falls on the superintendent, she's not the one in the trenches. She's not the one standing in front of our students. So the stuff that when we're putting those goals together, we're also giving our teachers only 3 months or 2 months to get to that goal. And so that's where I want us to also think about when we're writing these goals, what really is high level that she can do, and what really is something that needs to be delegated, because we have to allow the amount of time for those that are in the trenches, if it's something new, to get trained on and to actually be able to implement. So just a thought, if we are gonna go back, which I've been proposing to, because for us, it's also a part of that budgeting. Your budget helps push your goals. And if we're doing, we're budgeting everything, and then we're putting our goals, you're putting the cart before the horse. So it doesn't really help us either as a board to be efficient and ensure that we're supporting the initiatives that we're feeling, should be prioritized as part of the evaluation and the goals.
And that is, you're absolutely correct about that. And that's why the budget process, the budget development process, that's why that's done when it is, at the time when it's done. Because the goals for the budget has been already done by the administration, by the superintendent. All that's already done before we even walk into that budget development meeting. The goals are already there. So I just think that we just have to sit down as a board, and we have to get this timeline back in order. That's kind of the
It'll help
bottom line
everybody.
for me.
It will help everybody if you have a timeline and you follow that, the expectations that your superintendent knows what's coming, rather than, oh, when are they gonna do this? When are they gonna do that? It leaves too much uncertainty. But again, there are so many factors that influence the projection of numbers, like not getting the results until the next year, into the next contract year. That's why people have gone away from all that.
Absolutely. And it also, okay, and it also, kind of a domino effect if the superintendent, if we're out of cycle with the superintendent's evaluation, then there's other evaluations that need to be done that are probably out of the cycle as well.
That's on her plate. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so, we just got to get it back in.
And again, that will come from the superintendent and the board president getting together, and designing a small plan. Nothing elaborate, doesn't have to be 20 pages, a one page, hey, here's when we're gonna do this, here's when we're gonna do that, and float it out. Doesn't even need to be a long discussion. I don't think anybody have any argument about it. The key is, if somebody's not there, you need to move on. You can't have it held up because someone can't make a meeting.
I think they should just be part of the standard when they put out the board calendar of meetings. It should just be an automatic built-in so that it's not trying to organize dates.
Yeah.
Just like we know.
The further in
we're
advance, the
meeting
better it is.
Second and fourth Tuesdays, we know every year this is the meeting. Yep, you have two goal
It's not a
meetings
bad
set,
idea.
one for brainstorming, the other for finalizing.
I know you like that, yeah.
And then, come review time, you have those predetermined. So you make plans around that.
That's excellent thinking, and we know that we have to do it, so we might as well plan for it.
Perfect.
And Ms. Anna, I think we're all on the same page here. We
Yeah,
all
you
realize,
are.
we all realize
You all are.
that we have to get back in sync. Okay, we can't be effective if we're putting the cart before the horse, and we're doing things out of order, and we're not giving the superintendent enough time to achieve goals that we are approving very late in the cycle. So this is what we're attempting to do here. We're attempting to get back on track, and we can do that. That means we're gonna be busy during the next month. Okay, so I just want you all to be aware of that, because August seems to be the key month. So we're gonna be busy, and the good thing about it is that everybody here agrees with what we have
Yeah,
to
I
do.
didn't see any discontent amongst each other. You practice the ethics of being on a board and respecting it. This is a nice start. I mean, this should roll. It really should. I think this whole piece is worked out. It's, what format are you using? Whether you use the National Association's format, whether you use a hybrid that you've come up with, that doesn't really matter. The key is what do you want to get out of it? And you want to get enough information to evaluate the superintendent and meet the contractual obligations.
And there were some questions when we first set this meeting up, as to why we were doing this and what we were trying to accomplish by this. But, I just try to explain to everybody, I'm not the expert on this. And I really felt that we needed help and guidance. And this is what we're getting. And Dr. Friedman, I just want to thank you for being willing to come and work with us, because we need help. I mean, we all have a lot of ideas, but, we need to get on track. And just a bit of advice and guidance that you're giving us, I think is helping us to become more solidified as a board and as a group, knowing which way we have to
I
go.
like what I saw. Really, it's been a while since I've been at a board meeting or anything, but I think maybe this new environment has energized everybody.
It's the lighting.
It's the lighting. There's something about lighting that it does affect your learning. So, you never know, but you're in a good spot.
Handouts for us?
I had one other one, but again, it kind of speaks for itself. It's the one where it's a 3-year goals and indicate. 3 years is a long time in this business. So the more I looked at it, the more I said, it'd probably be too confusing and too much to duplicate. So, I mean, you can have it if you want.
I don't like 3 years.
Yeah.
I'd like to see it.
Here, you take it. It's a lot of paper, yeah.
In this political climate.
Who else, anybody else want a copy of that? Yeah.
I don't make 3-year goals at my work.
Yeah, 3-year goals is a little much, but he's dealing with a different kind of situation. Yeah, everybody's situation is different. Every board reacts differently, does things differently. The key is, the momentum is moving forward. Again, go back to earlier comments, how well things are going, the positive stuff that's happening, the lack of negative, I shouldn't say that, but the lack of negativity. Move with it, go with it. People get along, it's a good board, it's good. And your superintendent's been here 10 years, hard to believe.
8.
Oh, 8, okay. You're getting, your memory is failing you when you're counting superintendent years.
It's like dog years.
Yeah, like dog years.
8 years.
Yeah, exactly. And she hasn't changed one iota. Nor have any of you.
Okay, we are going to have to do some serious planning over the next few days. And what I will do is I will keep the board involved and apprised of everything that we're trying to put together. And I'm going to be looking for input from all of you. And just want to ask before we adjourn, does anybody have any comments, questions, anything they'd like to say before we wrap up?
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's been productive.
Bless you.
It's been cordial,
Very much so.
and it is good. And I just want to give kudos to the board president because it appears, and I'm being candid, it just seems like there's a different aura, if you will, different atmosphere, different kind of ways of doing things.
Yes.
It just feels that way to me, and it's very welcoming.
A new
Well,
leaf.
thank you, Ms.
A
Hannah.
new leaf. New building, new leaf.
Thank you. Okay, and with that being, that was a mic drop.
Envy you. Hope there was no truck overturns
With
on
that
the
being
highway.
said, I would like to ask for a motion to adjourn. Motion by Ms. Lindsay, second by Ms. Fabian. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned at 8:34 PM.